Okay, it is 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we're going to kick things off here. So welcome, everybody. I believe we have people joining us from around the country and around the world. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to cover today Microsoft Teams does that. And so hopefully there'll be some great takeaways. Just some housekeeping items kind of before we get started. This is something that we collaboratively have put together as remote workers. And we're kind of confined to some technology items. So if things don't work or if something happens, please bear with us as we work through that. We don't anticipate anything like that. But additionally, because we're working from home, I just got a text from my wife that our daughter is protesting sleep. So if a toddler comes in here screaming or a dog comes barging in or something like that, that's just kind of the nature of how we're working from home right now. And one other interesting fun fact, barbershops are closed. And so I bicked my head this morning. And
oh, goodness, Eric.
I don't have to worry about haircuts. But the joke is I'm bald anyway, so it didn't really make a difference to me. Yeah, maybe there's a couple alfalfas up there. But okay, let's dive in here and talk about who SWICKtech is. We are a team of about 30 people total. I don't think we're all pictured in here. Some folks were on site working or just weren't here for the photo day. But we're a happy bunch. We've been in business. SWICKtech has been in business for 15 years as of last year. Traditionally, we are a managed service provider. So we act as companies' third-party IT as a service. We either complement existing IT staff, support them in any way we can, or we act as a full IT department for some businesses. And we do a lot with DevOps. We've kind of really added a lot of different flavors onto what we are offering. If there's any questions about who we are or anything like that at all, we can field those at the end. We are located in New Berlin, Wisconsin, is where our headquarters are out of. Today, we will be presenting. So my name is Erick Clark. I'm a client success associate. I've been with SWICKtech for about 3 years. And Shane, you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Shane Kroening. I am in a similar role to Eric. I've been with SWICKtech for about 15, 16 months now. And I'm a little bit of a technical account manager, but with a small company like SWICKtech, and we all love helping and supporting our clients. We wear a lot of different hats around the office, including presenting this Teams webinar to you guys. We're excited to be here today.
Thanks, Shane. So, as we were building this presentation, we kind of stopped for a second and just thought about the state of the union, really what's going on right now with everything. And so, I looked at Maslow's hierarchy of needs with some of our team members and realized the physiological needs. I think we started to address that very early on as the news about COVID-19 started spreading. And so we all ran to the stores to get food and water, toilet paper, I guess. And then we kind of progressed to the safety needs, making sure that everyone has their jobs, their home, their family is safe, et cetera, that we're healthy by and large. And, we've started to, now that we've been working remote now for SWICKtech, I think this is week 3 for us. We're looking for that love and belonging, that friendship, family, sense of connection. And really, that's where Teams comes into play and where we thought, the connection here comes into the equation and it starts to make some sense. So in terms of the agenda that we're going to cover today, we're going to cover kind of how Teams can help humanize things and bring some authenticity to the workplace and keep us connected, but productive and accountable. We're going to cover a basic overview, some of the features of chat, some of the features of meetings, the phone system, if you have that. And we understand that there is a wide gamut of folks in this webinar. I think we had about 300 registrants or something around that number. And so hard to know where people fall on the spectrum, if you are using Teams at all, maybe only a little bit, or if you are using it deeply within your organization. So, we're not going to try to patronize people, but we want to add enough value to those folks that may be new to it. So bear with us as we cover the topic. It will scratch the surface in some places, but we won't go too deep in any one area. We're going to talk about file shares, screen sharing, and then at the end, we're going to cover some really kind of fun, neat, nuanced tips and tricks and some applications that can plug into it. As we get rolling, for those that don't know, we asked the question, what is Teams? It is the hub for workplace productivity and connectivity. It really is kind of this central thing for chat and communication, for analytics through Power BI, which is Microsoft's business intelligence software. It is a repository for file sharing and collaborative work. Calendar lives there in some cases. There's also kind of a social media feed baked in where you can like and comment and heart and share GIFs and memes and things of that nature with your team. So it really is this kind of central place that promotes and enables connectivity and productivity. It had last year surpassed Slack as the workplace, the professional chat kind of mechanism. So that verticality of that line there, that hockey stick growth, the 13+ million users, that was last year. And as of just a couple days ago, it really skyrocketed for obvious reasons and reached 44 million daily users, which compared to Slack, not that we're knocking Slack at all, it's just this is what we use. So 12 million users per day is quite a bit less than what Teams is seeing currently. And it's really just taken off. SWICKtech was an early adopter of Teams. We were one of the first 100 companies to ever use it in beta testing. And we've really kind of dog-fooded Teams for ourselves, but then started deploying everything we've learned along the way to countless clients across the country. So we've stood up Teams and done more migrations than you can shake a stick at. We've really become experts in this space. So that's why we felt the need to share this with everybody as things kind of, progress here. So I'll hand it over to Shane. We're actually going to do a little bit of a handoff here. So we'll see Teams in action because this is the platform we're actually presenting on, is Microsoft Teams. So Shane, if you want to take over control of the screen and you can run with the presentation for the next little bit here.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull up my slideshow here. All right, great. Thanks, Eric. I really appreciate the kind of general overview and introduction to Teams, and excited to kind of showcase a little bit about what I can do here. As Eric mentioned, this is kind of designed to be an overview of all of Teams. We're going to dive into some bits and pieces. We'll show you a bit of the layout, just general use stuff that you might already be aware of, but we want to walk through it and make sure everyone's on the same page. And then we'll get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty, how Teams works, some of the apps and other features that you can use alongside the rest of the Office 365 suite and how that all interacts together and how you can make it work really well for your business. We'll also then kind of touch on a little bit of the licensing details and how you can configure this for your specific environment. Cool, so diving right in here, we're going to talk a little bit about chat. And the chat feature you can see is, you can get to that from the top left. There's that kind of that navigational bar with all the different features. Chat is one of the first ones because it's kind of the most basic piece of Teams. And so from a chat, you'll have kind of a list of chats on your left-hand side. You'll be able to see all of the recent conversations you've been having. And then across the top there, you'll see the actual chat, right? So this is, for an example, this is a screenshot of Eric's chat with me. And so you can see who you're chatting with. You can see their status while you're chatting with them. That's that little red circle with the dash through it. And then you can also see the actual body of the chat, but across the top there, you can also kind of understand that you can video chat with them in the top right, or give them a quick call, or share your screen, or add other participants to this conversation. The chat feature is really designed for one-to-one or a couple of people just doing quick collaboration, talking over stuff. You can share documents here and edit them and collaborate on them. But most of the time, this is going to be more text-based. You can send images and GIFs as well. And you can see that you can also like chat messages or send a smiley face or a heart reaction. So moving right along, we've also got Teams chats. So on that left-hand menu, this is where you would jump down to Teams, and you're going to see your list of Teams here on the left-hand side. And that left-hand menu is going to show you all the teams you're a member of. Keep in mind, you're only going to see teams that you're a member of. So there might be other teams, maybe the accounting staff or the HR staff have their own team. If you're not a part of that team, you're not going to see that here. And then drilling down a little bit further, you're also going to have the channels within a team, right? So we've got that team name there, client engagement. And then within the channel within the team, you're going to have those channels. Every team will have the general channel. That's kind of the go-to basic channel where you can share everything with the whole team. And then you can build these other channels with specific titles. You can see we have one here for our brain food events to kind of collaborate with the handful of staff that work on those here at SWICKtech. And each channel has its own thread or conversation going on in the body of it. So for example, we're in this brain food events channel, so you can see the title across the top. You're also going to see the post section, which is that chat feature I mentioned. And just like traditional chats, you can post text in here. You can like things, you can heart things, send smiley faces, emojis. You can add GIFs and images, and even share individual documents or files from within the team. And then across the top there, you'll see that plus symbol. This is where you can add additional features to any individual team. And we'll get into this a little bit more later, but essentially if you press that plus tab, you're going to get a whole handful of different apps that you can add. And with those apps, then you can kind of go through and see, you can add Excel documents for people to view right from within a team, or maybe even a specific app that's external, like a third-party solution, like Trello, Zoom. Other third-party solutions integrate really well with that tab feature. Most common is going to be something like an Excel spreadsheet or a PowerPoint or a Word document that you want to constantly have in front of that whole team of staff. Cool. So switching gears a little bit, we're going to talk on meetings. And so meetings are really kind of core feature of Teams. If you don't know, Teams actually came from Skype. So Microsoft purchased Skype a while back. They kind of branded that into Skype for Business for businesses. And that's evolved into Microsoft Teams. And so with that in mind, obviously the core functionality of Skype was always just one-to-one chat, video chats, conferencing. That's a core feature of Microsoft Teams now. And so they have this feature called Meet Now. You're going to see it all over the place. This is one really good example. Down at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see the red box hovering over that purple video camera icon. And when you click on that, when you're within a channel of a team, you can just instantly meet with everyone in that team. They'll get an alert that you're starting a meeting, and they can jump right in, share their camera and microphone, and kind of just begin conversing with you. It's a great way to do, quick stand-up meetings. Maybe you have a sales staff that is all remote and they want to meet, for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes every morning and touch base. It's a really convenient and easy way to do that. So a scheduled meeting is something that you're going to actually specifically schedule out and put on the calendar. And so to give you an idea of this, we've laid out a meeting from our calendar. You can see that calendar button on the left-hand side there. And in this meeting, you'll see, the details, the name of it, the time frame that it is, where it is, if it's at physical location. And then you'll also see that Join Microsoft Teams meeting link in the middle of their body there, and you can also see that join button in the top right corner. Those are quick, easy ways to get into this meeting once it's been scheduled. And then I do want to call out, we do have a conference line and a conference ID number listed there. This is only if you have audio conferencing, and we'll touch on licensing a little bit more as we go here. But I just wanted to call out, if you do not have audio conferencing ability, that's okay. You can still schedule Teams meetings internally or externally, and people can join using the Teams app. Very similarly to how people joined this live event today by clicking the link and signing in with their Microsoft account or just opening it in a web browser. Cool, so a little bit more on the calendar front. This is your calendar. Like I said, it's on that left-hand menu there under the Teams. And this is going to link directly with your Outlook calendar. And so anything you put on your Outlook calendar is going to show up here and vice versa. And from Outlook, there is a plugin to create a Teams meeting. So you can set up a Teams meeting from within Outlook. You don't have to go into your Teams calendar, but this is a really convenient way to join and add meetings. In that top right corner, you'll see that we have kind of a Meet Now and a New Meeting button. Those are quick and easy ways from the calendar to join meetings. So if you hit that Meet Now button, it's going to take you live into a quick meeting. Obviously, you'll have a minute to check your camera. I think we've got an example of Eric here, checking to make sure he's got nothing in his teeth before he hops into a group meeting with a couple of people. You can turn your camera off if you want before you join. You can also mute yourself before you head into a meeting.
There's also a place to check your audio to make sure you're using the right. You can see there it says Jabra links. That was my headset for that particular meeting, to make sure that
you can,
you're using whatever.
You can test some of your settings, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I would also add, you can double click anywhere on the calendar on your next screen there to add a meeting to, very similar to how Outlook would work, your Outlook calendar.
Yep, the look and feel of this is going to be very similar to Outlook. It's really just purple instead of Outlook's blue, but it is the same calendar, excuse me, same environment. So you're going to see a lot of all the same stuff.
And they're synced together,
the other
too.
option that we highlighted up in the top right is the new meeting feature. And so from that new meeting feature, you can just go ahead and click on the new meeting, and that's going to take you into a template very similar to what you'll see in Outlook when you're creating a new calendar event or meeting on your Outlook calendar. You can add a title, you can add people to this meeting. For example, I know someone asked a question earlier. They wanted to be able to invite all of their staff to a meeting. And so a really good example of how you can do that is you can see that add channel option in this new meeting. You can add an entire channel to join a meeting. So you could schedule this out. Let's say you're scheduling an all staff meeting and you have an all company-wide team. You would just add that main channel to this, and then they're all going to get a notification of this event, and they'll be able to join the meeting at the time that it starts. You can obviously fill out additional details and a location if there is one. And then just another little bonus feature to the calendar on that new meeting section, you can also hit that drop-down button, and you're going to get an option to either schedule a meeting, which is what we just demonstrated, or you can schedule a live event, which is what we're in right now. So Teams offers this webinar live event solution. Obviously, you know that as you're here today, but it makes it really slick and convenient. You can add presenters and producers, right? So we have some staff behind the scenes helping out on this call, not just Eric and I put this all together. And then you can also set up, who you can send the attendee link to everybody. On the left-hand side there, you'll see kind of the general meeting details and how you can share this meeting with that attendee link. And then on the right-hand side, there's a lot of different resources and settings that you can change for a live event. So you can set it up to record so that you can share the recording with your attendees afterwards, something that we're going to be doing for you guys. You can turn on question and answer, and then after the meeting, you can get a report of all the Q&A that went on, and you can also get an attendee engagement report, so you can see who joined the meeting when, all that sort of stuff.
Shane, one of the questions that came through was actually, is this webinar piece an add-on or is it included? Do you know the answer to that?
The webinar feature should be included in general Teams licensing. Okay. So we'll get into licensing a little bit more later, because there are some pieces that are kind of gotchas, or on top of the traditional licensing, you need more. But if you have, if you're paying for an Office 365 subscription that includes Teams, you should be able to deploy live events.
Great.
Thanks, Eric. I'm glad you caught that. And yeah, feel free as we see.
So one more question that's related to this. So. Which is fine, we have the time for it. If we do a live event with a customer, do they need to have Teams as well? No, they do not. So great question. You can schedule a live event. So, and I want to make sure I explain these separately. There's meetings, which you can do with people internally or externally. And then there's live events that are more for like this webinar setting, where you want people to be able to attend, but maybe not interact with them in the traditional meeting sense. And both allow the ability to have someone who doesn't have Teams join. There's a couple of different options there. So if you're standing up a meeting and you send it via email, that person will get a link to join the Microsoft Teams meeting. And they can click on that, and it will download the quick little basic plugin, or let them join from the web browser.
and then they can be in the meeting as kind of a guest, and they'll be able to enter in their name, but that's about it. But they'll be able to interact with you, right? They can turn on their video if they have a camera and their mic and audio and converse with you in the meeting. Alternatively, if you have conferencing licensing and you send out a meeting, it's also going to include one of those phone numbers. And I think I have that in a previous example here. Let me just go back real quick. Yep, so this previous example, you'll see offers up the option to call in and then enter in a conference ID. So that ability does require some additional licensing, but it's available. And then for live events, yes, anyone and everyone can join. They just need to be able to open up a web browser on their device to set up kind of the basic Teams browser feature.
Great, thank you, Shane.
Cool, so switching gears a little bit, we wanted to talk about the phone system that's built into Teams. The phone system does require some additional licensing for external calling and being able to call phone numbers rather than just other team members, but a lot of these features are available to interact with other colleagues right out of the box with basic Teams licensing. So just to give you a feel for what the phone system functionality looks like, if you were to use Microsoft Teams to replace your traditional phone system, whether that be a VoIP system, voice over IP, or a traditional PBX, or if you have SIP trunks installed in your environment, Microsoft Teams is a full phone system. It can replace all of those solutions, and it requires a lot less backend. It's not going to require some sort of appliance or system to be installed in your building or environment. And it doesn't necessarily require any hardware at all. So we have some examples here of the hardware you can implement, but keep in mind you don't need all of these. For example, that top middle one is the headset, and we've actually got our headsets here. I'm not using it right now for this event, but every time I'm going to call, I'll be wearing that headset. It's really convenient. It has a mic or a boom mic to mute and unmute yourself. And it ties directly into my computer. So you'll be using Microsoft Teams on your computer to make the phone call and then utilizing the headset just as the audio device. So a couple other examples that we've got on this page. In the top left, you can see kind of a little speakerphone. If people you do conferences in their office, or they have a handful of staff that usually come to their office and they make conference calls, you can utilize something like that. And then in the top right there, we have what you would usually see as a traditional conference room phone. That is with Microsoft Teams built into it. And then across the bottom, going left to right, we have the Surface Hub, which is a Microsoft product that kind of showcases the meeting feature of Teams at its forefront. That middle one there is your traditional desk phone for folks who like having that hard phone. They can still utilize Microsoft Teams on that type of phone. And then the bottom right is a room system, right? So for turning a traditional conference room into a Microsoft Teams room where you can schedule meetings, you can set up the webcam, connect it to your display or monitor or projector that you might have in that room. So to show you a little bit about what this looks like, we don't want to dive too deep into the phone system because I know not everyone uses Microsoft Teams for this, but we do want to just give you kind of a brief overview of what this solution looks like. So you can see this is the calls tab in Microsoft Teams, and it offers a handful of options across that left menu. You can see the general speed dial where you'll have people and contacts, and then you can have a history of your calls. So just like a traditional phone, you're going to see who's called you. You'll have a voicemail section where you can see transcriptions of the voicemail and even listen to the audio recordings. And then in the bottom left, you'll see the number pad, right? So since we have Teams Voice here at SWICKtech, we can just dial out externally. That does require some additional licensing, so keep that in mind. If you don't have that, you probably don't have that licensing, but you can still directly call other people that are in your environment. All right, so next up, we want to talk a little bit about how you can interact with files in Teams, both with sharing them with individuals as well as teams, and how the file solution in Microsoft Teams is so robust that it can replace traditional file shares. So this is that Files tab within your menu on the left-hand side in Microsoft Teams. You're going to see a whole list of your recent files when you go in here, anything and everything that you've interacted with that is related to Teams or Office 365 in general. So these could be files that you've shared via a chat message. They could be files that you've shared on a team, or maybe even files that you've opened from your individual OneDrive. This is going to be a view that's tailored specifically to you. So keep in mind, just because you see files listed here doesn't mean other people have access to them. And then you can see, I just want to call out the file type available for file sharing. And so you'll see a lot of these are Word and PowerPoint and Excel documents. Obviously, those are going to be the most common ones that you're going to want to use in Microsoft Teams, and those are generally the most common ones that people use anyway. But you can have other file types in here. You can have PDFs, video files shared across Teams, all that sort of stuff can be shared. It's just not going to be as easily to interact with in Microsoft Teams, but you can still view them and share them across different teams and people. So to give you an idea of what this looks like, we have a quick screen grab here showing on the left-hand side, you can see this is a chat between Eric and I, and we've shared a couple of Excel spreadsheets. And then on the right-hand side is an example of us opening one of those Excel spreadsheets. So you can see I'm in Teams, right? You've got that Teams menu and that purple menu bar showing the title of the spreadsheet I have open, but it's also going to look like Microsoft Excel. So you're going to have a lot of functionality. You'll be able to open up this Excel spreadsheet and edit it right from within Teams. Pretty much the same as you would within Excel. If you're more comfortable in Excel, you can also still open it in Microsoft Excel or even in your web browser in the Microsoft Excel web version to edit the file. Since this is a shared file from this chat, this is going to be active between Eric and I. So any changes I make in this shared spreadsheet are going to automatically update, and Eric is going to see those. You can view a revision history and go back and edit and change some stuff, but it's a live file for both Eric and I. And that's true if you put it in a chat or in a team. If you post it in a team, more people are going to have access to it, and they can go in and collaborate and edit it and change it. A great example of this is this presentation, right? We put this together and a handful of people had shared access to it, and they were able to go in and edit it and change it as needed. So talking to the ability to replace kind of that traditional file structure, I'm sure a lot of people here have, you know, a U drive or an S drive or an H drive, you may call it. It might have a specific name, maybe it's your company's drive or shared drive, something like that. And those are hosted on a traditional server in a lot of environments. What Microsoft Teams does is it can really replace a lot of that infrastructure. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see an example channel that we have for one of our teams, and that's a list of the file structure that we've built out for that team. And if you hit that sync button across the top, it's going to bring that same file structure down to your file explorer like you see on the right-hand side. And so in that file explorer menu, it'll act just like a shared drive. You'll be able to click into it. You can see that you can view all of the different documents we've got in that same folder on Teams. And it's a one-to-one relationship. So anything that you edit on either side, whether it be directly in Teams or on your computer, it's going to automatically update on the other end, and you can collaborate with people. When you open those types of documents, they're going to be able to see who's in that document, who's editing it. You can chat directly within those documents. And so it's a lot more functional and a lot more collaborative way to utilize file shares rather than the traditional shared files. And so with that, I am going to hand you back over to Eric, and he's going to touch on some other cool features that Teams offers.
Thank you, Shane. Just going to get everything pulled back up here. Should be all set. You guys just confirm that you can see the screen that says screen sharing?
Looks good.
Okay, great. So that was pretty easy. What we just demonstrated was a screen share. And in fact, one of the questions that just came through was, can things from the web like YouTube videos be shared in a Teams meeting? So you can link via a chat to share that, or we could just do a screen share. So I think to answer that question, the answer is yes, and there's potentially a couple different ways you could do that depending on what you're trying to accomplish there. I think that's a correct answer. Shane, correct me if I'm inaccurate in any way there.
Yeah, no, that was good.
And then there are some questions for you before I move on. Let me just keep this giant picture of your faces up. Mike had asked the question, have you experienced differences in SharePoint or OneDrive folder names if you update a team name? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so Mike, I think what you're getting at is on the back end of SharePoint where you may have a team already created and it's got like a full name. If you update the team name, is it gonna resync those files differently with new folder names? Yes, I have seen that it can be pretty common. I would strongly just encourage that when you do that, involve someone who's familiar with the administrative side of Teams in case there's some cleanup needed. But usually you'll be able to tell the difference between those synced folders, and you can keep the correct one, and then you're just going to have to merge the other one if you need to. Generally speaking, you shouldn't have to merge any files, even though it might create a duplicate folder on your computer if you change the name. You won't lose any of that data. The really nice thing that with SharePoint being the back end of Teams, it makes it really easy to go into the SharePoint side if you're an administrator or even if you're just comfortable managing files. A bad example of this is I did this the other day. I accidentally deleted a file that I had and I didn't know where it went. And so I ran into the SharePoint side and you can see kind of the same file structure there. And there's a recycle bin there that you can kind of restore files or change the structure on that end.
Thank you. So there's two questions that came through. I'm going to leapfrog one of them because it's relevant to what you're talking about right now, and then we'll jump back to the other one. But how do you get that view, or how do you get your files into your file explorer? I know it's relatively easy to do, and maybe we can just show that after the fact when we go into demonstration mode, how to sync that stuff.
Yeah, I can just share that real quick.
Thank you.
So let me take over the screen here, Eric, and I'll show, okay. Bear with us, you might see a duplicate of the screen for a second. I'm going to go ahead and share our call. And then if you're in a specific team, so I'll go over to our teams here, you can see we have our project cheddar, our demo channel here, and our general channel. Within a channel, you're going to have this files tab across the top. And if you click on files, you'll see the list of files that I was talking about earlier here. And there'll be this sync button across the top. If you click that sync button, it's going to go ahead and bring it down into your OneDrive, your kind of SharePoint library in your file explorer. And it'll list it right in the quick access side menu there.
Thank you. And then going back to the other question that says go back to, I'll grab the screen share again here real quick. So no PowerPoint. There we go. I think that should be good. The other question is there a way to automatically set your status as do not disturb when you're sharing your screen? I know that I did it manually before we hopped into this webinar. So the word automatically, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Eric, it does. So I did it manually as well before we jumped into this webinar, just as like an added precaution. Like, oh, hey, I want to avoid all distractions while we're doing this. But Teams is pretty good about being smart enough when you're presenting in a meeting. So when you start to share your screen, it will set you to do not disturb automatically. You can also, there's other ways and tips and tricks you can do to change that. So there's certain Outlook settings you can change so that if you have a certain type of meeting, it will auto set to a certain away status. So generally, Microsoft Teams is pretty good about channeling your calendar and Outlook settings so that if you have a meeting on your calendar, it's going to say you're in a meeting. And if you're presenting, it's going to switch to do not disturb automatically.
Right. We'll cover some fun tips there too as we continue on. So I'll progress here with the presentation to cover some more of the items that we want to get to. But these questions are great, and so we're happy to address them as we go. They've been very relevant to what we're talking about. So thank you, everybody. Moving on to
if anybody feels like we missed their question or didn't answer it, we'll try and comb through and get to those ones when we get to the question and answer section. But feel free to repost a question if we missed something.
Sure. we'll come back to a couple of these. Some, if they're more technical too, we have other staff that can help address some of the more technical ones. But as we're talking about screen sharing, you'll notice this red square here is just highlighting the button that you actually click to do that. So what we've just demonstrated, going back and forth, Shane sharing his screen and me sharing mine, you click that, and once you do, you get this pop-up on the bottom, and you can pick various things that you want to share. So you're not sharing maybe your entire desktop, or maybe you do. In this case, obviously I've shared just the PowerPoint. So that's kind of nice. And then just a neat thing that we experimented with, we use the whiteboard a lot at our office for collaboration and ideation and brainstorming sessions. And so when we realized we could do that here remotely, and a lot of us have touch screens, our drawing capabilities are pretty terrible. But if there's creative teams that need to meet for strategy or things of that nature, you can still use a whiteboard to have that collaborative kind of creativity. That's just kind of an interesting, neat call out for those that don't know.
Eric,
yeah.
Eric, I would love to point out here too, this Microsoft Whiteboard feature is available on a lot of their devices and stuff nowadays. So if you have a Surface laptop or a Surface Book or a Surface Pro tablet, this comes in handy. It ties directly into the Whiteboard app built onto those computers, and you can use your pen to doodle and stuff like that. Additionally, it also ties into that Microsoft Surface Hub that we mentioned earlier. And so we have a hub in our office, and we can use the whiteboard during a meeting, and it'll tie it all together into the same conversation that we're having. So the participants that aren't in the office can see what we're drawing on the screen as well, which makes it a really cool collaborative tool.
And then you can share that when you're done, so it can be shared and saved, so you have it after the fact. Yeah, it's great. Like I said, we use it quite a bit at the office. So some of the tips and tricks, these are just nuances. This is stuff, some of it's straightforward and easy to do. I want to call out a couple of these things, but like you can change your themes. We've been showing everything in like just the standard out of the box display. You can change that to dark mode, high contrast mode. So if I look at some of the other things you can do in the search tab, by just simply adding a / there, you can see this great list of things you can do for quick shortcuts. The one that I've been leveraging as a remote worker is BRB, because I'm getting up to fill my coffee, or my daughter or my son needs some attention or something like that. So that's been really nice, but you can obviously see the other things you can do here, see all of your mentions. So if you aren't sure, I think someone tagged me in something, I can / mentions and see everywhere maybe my name has been brought up in conversation, so I'm not missing anything. See what's new, etc. So that's a fun tab too, to kind of be on the cutting edge of what Teams is capable of. You can kind of get an edge on some of your coworkers that way. I know at SWICKtech, our culture, people are early adopters of things. So, and then the other one, again, just a real simple tip and trick. If you type in the @ symbol in Teams, what it's going to first do is show you some of the people that maybe you interact with most frequently. So you can tag them in different things. But in this time of remote working, praise is something that we've been leveraging quite a bit. I know this is something you actually do on LinkedIn also, which is fascinating. But internally, as an organization, we've been doing it for, someone went above and beyond on something, and we're calling them out, and it gives like this little badge or what have you. Also, you can see the other things here, like I think this weekend's going to have some great weather. That's a positive. We could use a lot of positivity right now. So I might tag the weather and just show that. And then you can see there's more apps at the bottom that you can do. And to that question earlier about YouTube, looks like there's a shortcut for YouTube on here as well, at YouTube, and then you can search for those videos right within Teams. So pretty powerful stuff, really neat type of technology, I think. Going back to the status stuff, short of what it does automatically, you can manually input whatever you want. So as we're doing a lot of remote work, I've been challenging myself to make sure I'm selecting the right statuses based on what I'm doing. And like Shane had mentioned, Teams is pretty good at doing that automatically. If I'm on a call, it'll say on a call, etc. But if I want to type something, set a status message, I can say, at lunch, if important, please reach out to @so-and-so, and then it'll tag them, they'll be aware. And then you can, set that to clear after a certain amount of time, etc. So another great feature as we, again, are doing a lot of this kind of remote working, leveraging what we can to make it better for everybody. Some of the apps and bots that we have, these are just some that are pictured here. We'll kind of dive in, but on the bottom left, you'll notice where it says apps. If you click that, you're going to see kind of an app store, very similar to what you'd expect with the Google Play Store, iOS App Store. Even your smart TVs have app stores now. So if you're, as an organization, using something like Trello and you're leveraging that for project management or what have you, you can bake certain things in to Teams depending on the APIs that they have. One that we've used from time to time that's really easy to leverage is Poly, which is a polling app where you can poll, hey, who's available to meet for the all company meeting weekly, what time is best, and everyone votes, and then we can see those results, and we can do that right within a group or a team chat. So really kind of a neat tool, again, trying to leverage different things to make life a little easier so we can reduce some of that back and forth in that case. Do you have any favorites, Shane, that you like to call out? I think you're muted, Shane.
A couple of good ones are probably definitely Poly. You mentioned using polls is really convenient and easy. And then we've seen a lot of clients integrate tools like Trello into their environments, and that seems to be those types of tools. Integrating Dynamics 365, Trello, project management sort of stuff tend to be big hits.
Cool. Some of the things that, again, if we eat our own dog food, we have created a couple bots. We do have a DevOps engineering team, so we can leverage that team to do some neat things for us, and we can obviously consult on that kind of stuff too. Some of these things are easier than others and involve some engineering, but this one uses something that is called multi-factor authentication. So, for example, if Ryan is trying to log into LinkedIn to post something, it's going to say, great, you need to verify yourself through multi-factor authentication. So one of those things, in some cases, could be a text message. So we've set up a bot to grab text messages that dump into a channel under our operations channel. And then we go there, grab that code and pop it in so we can verify we are who we say we are. And for those that don't know, we'll get on our security soapbox for just 2 seconds here, because it is kind of baked into our DNA as a technology solution provider. MFA is multi-factor authentication. It comes down to 3 things: something you know, something you have, and something you are. When you have those 3 things, it's going to help thwart a large number of any sort of malicious attacks that might come through. If someone's trying to log in on your behalf through whatever means they've obtained your information, if they don't have one of these things or several of these things, then they're not gonna get in, right? And so the question then that follows is, where should you apply MFA? We recommend VPN access, which is a lot of folks are doing that right now. Anything with accounting software, QuickBooks, et cetera, and email. I think that auto put me to the next slide. And then who needs MFA? If you had to pick, everybody should have it, but if you had to pick, really protect those that make decisions and those that are have access to money, so the financial controllers. But we'll get off our soapbox and get back to the team stuff. Looking at another bot that we've deployed, you'll see something come from SWICKtech after this event. We used a site called Delighted, and that is for our Net Promoter Score. So we will survey you based on a scale of 1 to 10. And rather than having everyone in the company, you only get so many users to access that website. So for us, we've created a bot so it can dump into Teams. So now everybody can see our Net Promoter Score for various events or projects or things of that nature. Omni kind of awareness for everybody with a bot. So just trying to find ways to make things easier for the team and ourselves through some of those things. Obviously, every organization is going to have something that works for them or that they could leverage, and we'd be happy to talk through some of those things too. Shane, I'll turn it over to you. I'll keep the screen up here, but this is something that we promised some folks that we'd get to towards the end about pricing and licensing, and looks like some more questions came through too that I haven't seen yet. So
yeah, yep, we'll do a little bit of both here. So since we're up on this screen, we'll dive into this real quick and then we'll bounce over to the questions. Yeah, thanks, Eric. So generally speaking, there is a smorgasbord of Office 365 licensing options. There's all kinds of them. We wanted to showcase a few that we usually recommend to small businesses and businesses in general. And that's the enterprise level, or the E licenses. And so you'll see E1, E3, and E5 here listed. And each of those comes with the Teams implementation. And then as you go up the board, you're going to include other things like the other Office applications, so you don't have to purchase licensing for those separately, as well as some other security and compliance features that will be baked into those more expensive licenses. I do want to note, it's a little confusing, but Microsoft just recently announced they are kind of adjusting and changing their licensing structure and plans. And so they're moving away from the Office 365 nomenclature, excuse me, and they're moving to more of a Microsoft 365 nomenclature. And so it will all be Microsoft 365 in the future. You're still going to have similar plans, but it can get confusing fast. So if you have specific questions on that, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We interact with a lot of different organizations working through what the best Office 365 plan is for them. And it's different for everybody. It depends on what you want to use, what you need in your team's environment, as well as just other pieces of Office, whether that be utilizing something like Power BI for business intelligence data, or possibly something like Intune to manage computers in your environment, or an Azure Active Directory to manage the staff and usernames in your environment. So there's all different kinds of ways you can slice it, but it's important to know that most, if not all of them, will come with the base teams, and then it is going to be substantially more expensive as you add on packages and features like the phone system and calling plans to call out externally.
Thank you.
Eric, you want to bounce to the next slide?
No, I'll just hang out here. Just kidding.
Cool. So I think we're going to take some time to answer a few of these questions. Eric, feel free to jump in where I miss things, but I'm going to go through and just kind of quick answer a few of these out loud so people can hear them. I did see someone asked about the headphone and mics that we suggest. So I'm going to post to respond to that. The Jabra Evolve 75 is the headset that I have here. It's a dual one. They also make individuals, so you would just have one earpiece, and then it's got the boom mic that you can bend down and up to mute and unmute yourself. These come with docks and they integrate really well with Teams. So that's kind of the one we generally recommend. They are a little bit more on the pricier side. They're closer to the price of a full-on phone handset than a headset. But it is important to note that for people who are looking to use Teams and maybe don't have budget to purchase additional headsets and stuff, the AirPods, or sorry, not AirPods, those are ridiculously expensive, but the Apple earphones, like what Eric is wearing right now, are another option, right? They offer a way for you to communicate with folks really quick and easy. Almost everybody's got a pair of those who has an iPhone out there. So there's all different kinds of options. And like we said before, you can also use a traditional handset that comes with Teams built into it as well.
I will say that the Jabra that you called out, the Evolve 75, the quality I think is pretty darn good in terms of just audio quality, and they are noise canceling too. So I mean, like it's nice to have those. You can really get some good focus work done when you're using those. Thank you. Sorry. I had another thought,
no, you're all good. Someone did ask, do I have to individually enter my contacts? The answer is yes and no right now. And so the way Teams handles contacts is anybody that's in your environment, in your Teams environment or your Active Directory, so to speak, will be readily available as a contact in Teams. It does not, however, yet sync with your Outlook contacts. So if you're calling people externally, you're going to want to enter those individually or separately. I know that they are working on adding those features. That's probably my one. That would be like the one thing or the one downside that I would say to using Microsoft Teams for voice is the contacts feature is not very robust yet, but they're working on it. Cool. So just working down this list here, we're going to answer a few of these questions. I think I'll try and demonstrate some of them as well. But someone asked, if you share a document with someone via chat, you mentioned it updates between the two parties. Will it update on the OneDrive as well as the document was originally pulled from there? So the answer is no. Those are two separate documents. So if you want to use a document that's ready in your OneDrive or already in a team, I would recommend sharing it, and you can do that. For an example here, let me go ahead. I'm going to steal the screen from you, Eric, and share my Teams. So if you're in a team, and you see the documents here, you can click on one of these and copy the link. And so I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and then I can go, you'll see that link here. You can copy the SharePoint link if you prefer, but they're the same thing. Once you've copied that link, if you post it into a chat or back into the general channel, people are going to see that link. And oftentimes it won't be a URL like that. It will be the actual name of the document. It just depends on where you grab it from. But if you grab it from your OneDrive, it'll be the name of it. And then that way people can update it directly from your OneDrive if you share it out, or from a team file. Cool.
Cool. So, I'll grab this back from you just to showcase that. Were there any other questions? Did we get them all?
Yeah, we have got a few more here, and we'll comb through. So someone asked to see how you can delete chats. You can delete chat messages. I don't promise that is an effective way to avoid someone seeing your chat message. But just as an example here, we'll go ahead and jump into a chat here. And I'll go to a conversation I recently had with Eric. And you can just click on one of these chat messages. Oh,
it shows you like 3 dots or something.
Yep, so you'll get these 3 dots next to the emoticons. You can click that, and there's going to be an option to delete that message. The other person will see this notice that a message has been deleted, so just keep that in mind when you're deleting messages. If it was something you didn't want someone to see, unfortunately, you might not have control over that.
Monique asked, why can I see what's been included in the chat and Teams calls before I've even joined the call?
Why?
I think it's, you know, I think we've talked about that in terms of like even employee training. So you see a running tally of everything that's been going on, even though maybe you haven't been a part of that as it started. So you kind of get that legacy view. Is that, I think that might be kind of what's happening there.
Yep, the scenario there, Monique, might be a recurring meeting, and so you're seeing historic information in that chat, or it could be a meeting that's built into a team, in which case the chat and the meeting are kind of separate from each other.
Cool. Claire asks something about licensing here. Can you tell us more about the licensing for hosting Teams webinars? I got a bit lost when it came to the audio licensing and the additional toll-free number that you have to pay for.
Sure. So those are kind of 2 separate things. The Teams webinars feature is generally available in Teams. You can start a live event. And that's just when you're creating a meeting on your calendar, you would choose a live event instead of a new meeting in that dropdown. And then the audio licensing part is just, that's if you want to have that ability to have that toll-free number so that external parties can call in from their phone or from a conference line, or other ways to call into the meeting like that.
But you're right, Claire, it can be confusing. We've worked through this several dozen times for many organizations, large and small. So, you know, if there's any concern or question about what you get with which version, we can definitely help navigate that. If you want to send a specific inquiry to our marketing@SWICKtech email, we can go deeper there if we need to. But it is confusing. Even the naming conventions that Shane mentioned, Office 365 versus Microsoft 365, or even the fact that there's a team inside of Microsoft Teams and that deals with teams of departments at businesses. So, you know, Microsoft likes to seemingly make things confusing, maybe not inherently, but it is what it is sometimes. Ray said, we use Plantronics headset and those work well. That's great. Those are also noise canceling. And then can you do a poll in a meeting? I think the answer is yes for that.
I've never done that, but I know you can poll. I would recommend polling from within a team rather than in a meeting. You can tie it to like a meeting chat thread. So every meeting you stand up in Teams is going to have a chat thread tied to it. And from within there, there's a couple of features available, like whiteboards, meeting notes, so you can take notes directly in a team, or sorry, in a meeting and share files. But I'm not sure you can add like a specific app like Poly. So I would recommend, instead of adding it to the meeting, that you just pull the team of people that you want to get that information from.
Okay, a couple more here that have come through. And this is a two-parter. While on external client meeting with screen share, can you pass the screen presentation to someone else on the meeting? Also, can you do things like share mouse and keyboard control, etc.?
So to answer the first one, yes, you can. If you're in a meeting and the client's external, as long as they joined via their computer, so they're using a web browser or the Teams client, they'll be able to see your screen share. They could also share their screen, or someone else that's in your organization could switch and share their presentation. And then additionally, there is a remote control feature. So when you share a screen, you do have the ability to allow remote control access and have someone else take control of your screen. That can be kind of tricky to navigate. It only works with certain screens. Like if you share something, if you share a specific PowerPoint presentation, someone can't control that. So there are a little bit of nuances with sharing mouse and keyboard control, but it is a feature available in Microsoft Teams.
Cool. Do you know if closing a meeting has been addressed yet? I'm not sure. Do you understand what that means?
I don't. I'm thinking maybe like not let other people join it. Meetings should be specific to the attendees, so anyone you invite to it can jump into the call. And there isn't like a way to cut them off at that point. If you're the producer, if you created the meeting, you do have some control over attendees, so you can kick people out of a meeting or mute them, etc.
Okay. When an administrator adds an app, will it be added to other users' Teams accounts within the organization that are under the Microsoft account?
So the apps are going to be actually more specific to a team. And so to show you an example, let me share my Microsoft Teams again with you real quick here. And if you go into a specific team, you'll see all of these apps across the top that we've had added. So we have Poly added here, we have a Power BI app, et cetera, et cetera. Those are going to be specific to this team. So when I click add here, and I choose another tab to include in this, then everyone on that team is going to see that. If we go down to the bottom left and you click the apps down here, this is going to be where you can add them for yourself or for a team. So if you add an app specifically for yourself, that's going to be something you're going to see kind of on your sidebar here. If you add an app for a team, it's going to be that traditional route that I just showed where you can see it in the team channel.
Okay, and then I think one of the last ones that have come through, there's a couple more. Someone that we showed the delete option to, they're not seeing that as an option. Is that something that maybe their administrator has blocked them the ability to do?
Yes, so there is an administrative portal for Microsoft Teams within Office 365 or within Microsoft 365. Yep, most likely if you're not seeing an option or a feature that we have shown here today, it's going to be disabled in your environment. So another really good example of that, or something you might run into, if you're standing up a live event, the public event feature has to be enabled in your environment to be able to publish it to other people. It doesn't require additional licensing, but someone on your IT team or an administrator at your company may need to go in and turn that feature on.
Okay. Couple more here. When you send an invite for a meeting, can others forward your meeting to additional attendees?
Yes, so meetings in Teams are going to be much like meetings on your Outlook calendar. You can forward them indefinitely, so to speak, and people can join in as long as they have that link.
Okay, great. Where did it go here? Sorry, I clicked around a little bit. Sometimes closing a meeting, the meeting stays open after it's over if someone remains in the meeting. Sorry. Oh, so that was a clarification from the question earlier.
Gotcha. Okay, so
is there a specific way to end a meeting then?
Yeah, so if someone remains in the meeting, I don't think you can forcibly like boot them out. But generally speaking, from my experience, it's been when the presenter or the person that created that initial meeting leaves, it kind of ends that call.
Okay,
But
and then
I don't know a way to force that.
Before, I think some people are heading out as of 3 o'clock here, so I wanted to take a moment. For those of you still in the webinar, we are doing another presentation next week, 1 week from today at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. And really, it's about the cybersecurity attacks that are coming through, especially related to COVID-19 scams, but more than that also. And so we're going to really work through how to identify these things and how to protect yourself as an end user and do some kind of training around that. So if anybody has any interest for that, you can find that event in Eventbrite and on our website, SWICKtech.com. Under our resources tab, we have an events page, so you can follow that for registration. And we'll be sending out some emails for this as well. So any interest, or if you have any users at your organization that could benefit from this, if there's concern there, very practical presentation on how you can help kind of prevent those things. And let's see if there are any other additional questions we wanted to get to before we end the presentation.
I do see one here, Eric, from Trisha. She's asking if we can show how to share our screens. So this might be a little tricky or confusing, Trisha, but I'll do my best here. Obviously, I have to share my screen before you can see it, but there is a button right across. When you're in a meeting, you'll see kind of this live bar, which I'll show you in a second when I share my screen. And it has a button there called Share. And when you click on that, it's going to give you the opportunity to share your desktop or a specific window, right? So for example, I'm sharing only Microsoft Teams when I do this. And so when I take over here, you'll see my screen here. You'll see Eric because he's in the call and the other people that are in this call. And you'll see this button now says stop sharing. So before it said share and it offered me the opportunity to pick a different screen. Obviously, if I hit stop sharing now, it's gonna take that view away from you. I hope that helps. Like I said, it's kind of a catch-22. I can't really show you how to share my screen once I'm sharing my screen.
It's kind of tricky. Some of the challenges of trying to present from Teams. Yeah, I think the max participation number was it like 10,000 or something?
It is, yep. 10,000 participants is the current limit. I do not know if Microsoft intends to adjust or change that. You may be able, if you're actually running an event that is more than 10,000 people, you may be able to reach out to their support and convince them to adjust it temporarily. I'm sure that's a bandwidth related issue on their end.
Right. And Martha, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate you hanging out with us today to learn more about Microsoft Teams. If there's no more questions, which I don't think there are, thank you, Tricia, as well. We'll be sending out a Net Promoter Score survey, so your honest opinion and feedback is going to help us shape the next one up to be successful. Hopefully this one was, and you guys had some takeaways for this. So thank you very much for tuning in, I guess.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We really appreciate it. I just wanted to add on to that from Eric. If you have any follow-up questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us at SWICKtech. We're happy to help, whether it be something that we went over in this webinar and you just want to get, a rerun of it or see a little bit more detail, or if it's something more technical, right? If you have administrative questions, feel free to reach out to us. We can put you in touch with some really smart engineers that build these solutions for our clients all day long, and they can answer some questions for you.
Cool. And then this will be this webinar has been recorded, so I believe that will go out too in case you missed anything or want to rewatch anything. So thank you everybody, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks everyone.